Hello everybody, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. Welcome back and welcome to all the new patrons who've made their way over here. You'll notice it's a much quieter environment. We get to have a more civil discussions without all the ruckus from the peanut gallery. So welcome back. Okay, in today's news, we had something interesting to happen, and I've been looking for a way to talk about it. Well, guess what? Some asshole stepped up and provided me the story. Explosion rocks. New York commuter hub, suspect in custody. I hope that everyone's heard about this. Some ding-dong in New York City, right, tried committing an act of terror. So I've got some details here I want to read, and then I want to talk about the underlying fundamentals of how this relates to you and I being a prepper. Okay, so New York, December 11th, Reuters. Right, a man with a homemade bomb strapped to his body set off an explosion in a New York commuter hub. Now, when I read that initially, I thought, holy cow, some guy... He wasted himself and blew the hell out of everybody. What a mess. And it turns out that the bomb was so weak that all he did was burn himself, right? Knock himself down and give, I think, a police officer and a couple of the civilians some minor injuries, which is terrible. But thankfully, the bomb wasn't all that well made. All right. But if you saw some of the headlines, if you saw some of the pictures, they tried showing this and making it look like it was a major terrorist event. It was a bit confusing. All right. So, the man set it off, injuring himself and 3 others in what Mayor de Blasio called an attempted terrorist attack. Right, the suspect at the incident, right, which was a block from Times Square, was identified as Akayed Ullah. Right. The weapon used was a pipe bomb. It was fixed to the suspect with zip ties and Velcro. And this guy was doing a great job for what he was considering doing, right? The device was described as amateur level, and obviously the facts support that idea. It was an amateur homemade bomb set off by a guy. He probably believed in his head that he was going to kill everybody, including himself. Who knows what was in his head, whether he's a Muslim terrorist or whether he's just a terrorist with a Muslim name. Who knows? Or Middle Eastern sounding name or Arab name. Right? It's hard to be politically correct when everything is incorrect. Right? Okay. They call it on the first page twice an attempted terrorist attack. Now here's what I'm going to say. The bomb went off. No one died, but it's still a terror attack because of the reaction people had. People on the subway, people on the street, people watching and learning on the internet, television, wherever. Right? It was a terror attack. It has the effect of terror, and we'll get into that here in a bit. John Miller, the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, said that in the course of the post-9/11 world, as you are aware, there's also been approximately 26 plots that we can talk about that have been prevented by law enforcement. Right? So, I guess as you are aware, I didn't know there were that many. I didn't know there were that few. I didn't know anything because we aren't aware. We aren't made aware of what's going on unless they want to cite something. Right? So everything Mayor de Blasio or anyone else says, because they're politicians, there's an agenda behind it. So, there was a stampede up the stairs to get out, says Diego Fernandez. Everybody was scared and running and shouting. Now, I'm going to butcher this poor girl's name. Alicja Wojciechowski. said, suddenly a woman fell. No one even went to stop and help her because the panic was so scary. End quote. That tells us, you and me, a little bit about people's behavior. Self-preservation is huge, right? And of course it is. What good are you if you're dead? Right? At the same time, people don't want to help other people when they're scared, when they're panicking. Lessons to be learned about people and shit it's the fan. Because this is a minor shit it's the fan incident. Lasted a few seconds or a few minutes. People thought shit's hitting the fan, I'm getting out of here. Alright, WABC reported the suspect was in his 20s and that he had been in the United States for 7 years. And his address was a Brooklyn, New York address. You know, NYPD shut down the entire block, I guess, around his home. And there was a heavy police presence. You know, this is interesting to me. You see, where I wanted to go with the idea was that as we get closer to shit hitting the fan, whether it's associated with North Korea or happenings in Jerusalem in the Middle East, as we get closer, I expect to see more people take extreme actions, exhibit extreme behavior. The reason I expect to see this is because there's going to be more pressure brought to bear on everyone. And that includes the individuals who have bad things in mind for you and me. So this guy felt that this was the time and this was the place to try and kill himself and take others with him for the purposes of jihad, ISIS, revenge, a first strike. But what it does tell me that is for real is that if this guy, and like the other one that was mentioned elsewhere in the article, they had homemade pipe bombs. This guy and others are acting as lone wolf terrorists. Whether he killed anyone or not, he's still a terrorist. Not because he had a pipe bomb. I really don't care if someone has a pipe bomb or a gun. None of that matters. It's when you bring these things and try and set them off to kill people. That's when you become a terrorist, in the act of the crime, right? We can't run around, the police can't run around, no one can run around shooting everyone and say, that guy almost committed a crime. You actually have to wait until the crime is being committed. Puts us in a tough position, does it not? C'est la vie, that's life. Where I come down and say the rubber meets the road is, we all have principles as human beings. And one of the principles that you and I have as a prepper is self-reliance. That includes food, shelter, water, medicine, clothing, and a means of self-defense, right? Did I leave anything out? Whatever it takes to live, in other words. If you are living a life and you are not able to defend yourself, what does that mean? It means you've abrogated that. You've surrendered your ability to defend yourself. What you've done is you've put that responsibility somewhere else. And you have given up on a principle of life. And that is that the first person, the best person that you can count on to protect you, protect your spouse, protect your children, friends, family, loved ones, everything, that's you. You are the first line of defense. And as a prepper, that should mean more than it does to the average citizen. What we keep seeing and hearing about are incidents where the people can't do anything. Now, in the case of a guy who stands up and says, Allahu Akbar, and pulls a string and lights a bomb off, there's not a lot you can do there. But these other terrorists and bad guys, whether they're Antifa or communist or whatever, they bring guns to play. And if you don't have a gun, you are not taking your role as a prepper seriously. Now, I know that's a pretty harsh, pretty strong indictment. But if I don't say it, who is? You need to be able to defend yourselves, especially in situations similar to this, right? Protecting yourself is going to be paramount in shit hitting the fan. As we get closer to SHTF, We're going to see more of these outbursts from the nation's enemies, from politically subversive groups like Antifa, from radicalized groups like, I don't know, Antifa. There's a bunch out there. We can say the KKK or white supremacists. We can talk about the Black Panthers. Whatever group or whatever characters within a group decide that the pressure's too much to bear, they're going to snap. And when they snap, what do? They start killing people, hurting people, lashing out. When shit hits the fan, there's going to be a lot more pressure, a lot faster, right? Now we've got pressure cooker action. That's why we say we need to be prepared mentally. We need to have a plan. You need to be prepared ahead of time. Because you can imagine that somebody who goes to the store to get food, water, medicine, because something bad has happened, say an atomic bomb goes off in an American city or an EMP, and they're freaking out, and they go to the store and there's nothing to have. Or they go to the store and buy something and someone robs them instantly. Walk out the store, got 2 bags of food, and I'll make it 3 days, and someone clubs them and takes their stuff. There's going to be a lot of that type of activity. People hurting each other. So right now, you and I have the opportunity to acquire a means of self-defense. Whether it's a shotgun, a handgun, or a rifle, get some self-defense. You need to protect yourself. If you can't protect yourself today, right, while there's no shit hitting the fan and there's police and firemen and other citizens, if you can't get adequate protection when something like this happens, what do you think is going to happen when shit hits the fan? Whatever police there are going to be busy, number one, protecting themselves. Number two, they're likely going to be worried about their own families. Number three, they're going to think about their job and their police station next. Then they start worrying about people out in the streets. Right? Then they start worrying about us and what's going on. And if shit hits the fan, are they going to be able to be everywhere at once? The answer, obviously, is going to be a big fat no. No, they're not. You might be in a neighborhood that is rough or becomes rough. You could be in a neighborhood that is too many blocks away, and a policeman who's getting multiple calls is not going to have the time to address all of them, and will probably address those that are closest to them or the safest for them to handle. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to get shot. Okay? So what is it that makes us preppers? It is our principles. That is our belief system that we have to rely on ourselves when shit hits the fan. But we already know in our everyday lives right now, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to have a job so we can provide food and water, shelter, all the things we need. We're responsible that way. So it's not a big leap to say when shit hits the fan, when more things like this happen, we're going to want to be able to protect ourselves. So get that means of self-defense. Now, since coming over to Patreon, and in fact the last few weeks, but especially since coming over to Patreon, I've been talking more about self-defense. Doing gear videos and gear tests for some time now. Because as we get closer, as I see the tension coming up, I want to start showing and demonstrating more of these things. I've got some really great gear videos coming up. I hinted at one the other day, building an AR. The other one is going to be a hand cannon showdown. And I've been planning it, and it's going to be exciting and fun. I got some special surprises there for you guys. That's going to be in the next week to a couple of weeks. So I've got 2 of those videos. We're going to do more of those because I want you to see that I'm just a regular guy. And people that appear in the videos, they're just regular guys. All right? Sometimes they're just my regular kids. But the deal is guns aren't dangerous. People are dangerous. This guy is dangerous. And these people are out here right now walking amongst us. How many thousands of people did that ding-dong walk by in the last week? He lives in New York City. It could have been tens of thousands of people. It's just today he decided to light the fuse on a bomb. We're going to start seeing more of that. It's not going to get better as we get closer to shit hits the fan. It's going to get worse. Right? If you own a gun, that puts you in a better position to protect yourself now and when shit hits the fan. If you get some training from a professional at a gun range, be instructed by a law enforcement or ex-military that has some experience, any training you can get where knowledge is offered above and beyond what you already have, that should help you tremendously. Additionally, practice on your own and common sense. If you're a prepper, I know you have common sense, but common sense goes a long way. There's no shortage of it. Usually, one common sense thought leads to another common sense thought. So getting some self-defense, common sense, it is a principle of the prepared mind. There is no one better to care for you than yourself. So, am I wrong? Once again, I like to say, I don't know everything, right? But I have my opinion. I'm the expert in my world, right? I know my world front and back. So I'm the expert in it, but you are the expert in your world. If you live in a city full of pacifists, right? Where everybody, if they get a little angry, lays down and takes a half-hour nap and thinks about it, you may not need a gun. Right? But if you don't live in that place, then I'm going to recommend you get a means of self-defense. Now, you may live in a city that's full of typically normally calm people, but what I can tell you is when things get tough, the biggest X factor, the biggest variable of the equation is other people's behavior. And again, things progress. Day 1, tension. Day 2, fear. Day 3, people act out. Day 1, people are eating. Day 2, day 3, the national average is on day 3, people don't have food in their homes. They see the food disappearing, the stores aren't open, etc. That's when people will act out. Now, you're going to hear when shit hits the fan, you're going to hear things like, everybody stay calm, everybody relax, we've got food on the way, there's no problem, everyone just chill, wait in line, we'll get you, take care of you, etc., etc., etc. I can see it, I can hear it, I can imagine it, I have the foresight to see what they're going to do down at City Hall or down at the supermarkets. But I can guarantee you that there's going to be desperate people there, scared people, and they're going to act out. So please get prepared. And do not forget the importance of defending yourself. It is a primary principle. It is a fundamental objective, right? It is your mission statement between your ears. Self-defense. Right? You have to take care of yourself because no one else is going to do it for you when it's needed most. As evidenced by every time you hear about a shooter who is killing people and they're not stopped. And I have to say that that person in Texas that blasted that jackass that was killing people in church, that was a damn good thing to happen. I was really glad to see it, and that it's a part of the historical record that wacko was killing people, and if it was not for that guy shooting him with his hunting rifle, he probably would have killed a lot more. And that guy was what? Antifa? Terrorist? Both? It's a crazy world out there, folks. It's crazy. I'm not saying join the crazies. I'm saying protect yourself from the crazies. And scotch after a long day is a good thing. For medicinal purposes only. Anyways, thank you for joining me on this video. I want to thank those guys who are putting comments on Patreon. That's great. It's a much more subdued crowd, as I mentioned. We get to come here, we get to share, be polite. And I want to thank you guys for supporting our efforts here. There's a lot of work we're doing behind the scenes, and it is much appreciated. I also recommend telling your friends, come here. If you want this type of information. Right? See what I'm up to, what I'm thinking, my opinions on current events, my opinions on what we need to do as preppers. And there's no judgment, right? This isn't YouTube, so we can all relax. These are just my ideas. You guys have yours. I hope you do the absolute best you can to be prepared, because it's coming, folks. It is getting screwy out there, right? And every week I do the weekly wrap-up, and this week was no different than the week before. We're definitely getting closer to shit hitting the fan. And the only way to get through this, the best way to get through this, right, is to understand that chance favors the prepared mind. Semper Fi to you all. Have a good day, and please, above all else, stay safe, stay frosty. Cheers. Oh, yeah. Playtime is over. Get your Prepared Mind merchandise to show your support for the channel, stop censorship, and to tell YouTube they can smoke it. Get prepared now.